Hello, welcome to another edition of Issues with Jide. Here we talk about actions and inactions of those who shape our political and national landscape and how these impact us positively or otherwise. I'm Ibrahim Shita. Today on the show, Wike Fubara War, why Fubara surrendered. In the course of the program, we take your questions. The first, subscribe to our YouTube channel and drop your questions in the comment section. It's important to mention that we can only read comments with human names and the ones based on the subject matter. I have joining me via Zoom, the master himself, Jide Kolade to touch you. Good to see you, Bikil.
Good evening, Ibrahim. I hope you can hear me clearly.
Very well, loud and clear.
Okay. We are pleased to at least to read all those reports indicating that peace has finally been found in the raging discord or dispute between.
In order to put this into a proper perspective, I'm actually going to throw the question to you. I mean, the first sample for this interview. Just as you were about to say, because after several months of animosity, we see President Bola Ahmed Tinubu hosting another reconciliation meeting between the suspended governor of Rivers State, Simla Fubara, and the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, Nyesom Wike, where a peace deal was said to have been brokered. So this, according to reports, has been met with mixed reactions. Can you help us understand what the peace is all about, which would mean a confirmation or dismissal of speculations after this meeting between the belligerent parties?
You said what?
I said, can you help us understand what this peace, this peace deal brokered by the President Ahmed Tinubu, what is all about, which would mean a confirmation or a dismissal of speculations after this meeting between these belligerent parties?
Yeah, it was inevitable that the president had to come in again. But don't forget, the president intervened when the matter was still at its embryonic stage. But things got so bad that at a point, Nyesom Wike even said, look, there is no retreat, no surrender, that it was not possible for them to come together again. But the president had cause to intervene. What President Tinubu did by intervening in this matter is strategic. And it underlines the fact that in this whole matter, he is the big difference maker, the big decision maker. If it was left to Nyesom Wike, the House of Assembly that he controls will have impeached the governor. And if they had impeached the governor, it would have been difficult to fault it because
all of us
the
members of the
Supreme Court had already affirmed that there was no government in Rivers State. As far as the Supreme Court is concerned, without the three tiers of government functioning, you cannot say that governance is taking place. There are three tiers of government. There is the executive, the judiciary, and the legislature. In any democratic setting, these three organs must be functioning. And the Supreme Court affirmed that in Rivers State, the judiciary's decisions were no longer being obeyed. In Rivers State, the House of Assembly's decisions were not being obeyed. In fact, the governor refused to recognize the House of Assembly recognized by law, at least recognized by the judgment of Justice Omotosho. So in the wisdom of the Supreme Court, the justice of the Supreme Court, no form of governance or no government was in charge in Rivers State, because as far as the Supreme Court was concerned, all three tiers of government must be functioning. That's the way it's designed. It is not designed in such a way that only the governor will see himself as the Alpha and Omega. Fubara once said that you are in that house because I chose to recognize you. But that was above his pay grade. It is not in your place to determine whether the House of Assembly exists or not. The House of Assembly exists as a product of the law. An election was conducted and people were elected into the House. You cannot, as a governor, say that they exist because you have chosen to recognize them. There were a lot of things that were said that showed so much arrogance on the part of the governor, because he was being led and being misled by individuals who had their own motives. At the end of the day, Fubara had to surrender. Fubara became remorseful because he saw clearly that without the House of Assembly, he could do nothing. One of the difference makers in this whole conflict was the fact that Wike had control of the House. I can tell you that if Wike didn't have control of the House, if he did not have so much clout on the House, the majority of the members of the House, not even the president could have saved Wike. You can imagine a situation. Let's look at a scenario in which the governor controlled the House of Assembly. Wike would have been on his own. There's nothing the president would have been able to do. So the fact that he didn't have control of the House really hurts his chances in this conflict. So he knew that he needed to make peace. He became remorseful, met with Wike himself a number of times, and the president eventually intervened, because as far as Wike was concerned, he was not happy that the president intervened in form of an emergency rule, because he was already imagining that the House of Assembly would impeach the governor. And once the House of Assembly does that, then he will be able to put whoever he likes in place. So, but the intervention of the president put an end to that. And I'm happy that even the governor himself admitted to the fact that the president's intervention was a good one, because I think by hindsight, he saw clearly that the emergency rule was a blessing in disguise, because Wike could have used the House to impeach him, especially after the Supreme Court affirmed that the Martin Amaewhule-led House was the authentic one. The Supreme Court affirmed that the House, the three-man House of Assembly, was not known to law. We had been saying it for some time, that, look, you cannot operate a House of Assembly with three men. And I challenge those who are pushing the governor, pushing him to the edge of a cliff, that they should mention one country, one place in this whole wide world where three individuals control the House of Assembly. It could only happen in Nigeria. But I'm happy that all of that has come to an end. He realized that in the interest of peace, he needed to put an end to his conflict with the House of Assembly, with the former governor, Nyesom Wike, and so that before the expiration of the emergency rule, he could be allowed to go back to work. So these are some of the reasons Fubara decided to give up the fight. I'm confident that the president, having intervened on 2 different occasions now, both of them, Bison Wike and Fubara, will behave themselves and they will let us have peace in a state that is so critical to Nigeria's economic well-being. So Wike was smart enough to hold on to the house because he knew that without that house, he had nothing. And it was that house that gave him an edge in this whole matter, especially after the judiciary affirmed that the members of the house who were loyal to him were authentic members of the house who had not lawfully defected to the APC. To defect to a party, certain conditions must be met. Those conditions were not met. Yes, originally they wanted to defect, but in the fullness of time, they didn't defect. They remained in the PDP. Their names are still in the PDP register. They never approached their wards to go and officially resign from the PDP and join another party. That is how it is done. If you want to leave a party, you go to your ward and officially resign and then join that rival party. And then your name will go into the register of the new party. As long as that is not met, there is no legal framework that anyone could point to the fact that you have officially left a party. This is the point that we have been making, that some people didn't listen to us because they prefer to be emotional. The law is not emotional. By nature, the law is not emotional. If you do not comply with the law, there is nothing that you can do. So in the eyes of the law, those guys never left the PDP. Their names remain on the register of the PDP, not struck out. They never approached the leadership of their party at what level to say they were leaving. And their names are not in the register of the APC. So you cannot, there is nothing that you can hold on to say they have left the party. We said this a long time ago. People didn't listen, but that is their problem. This is what the law says. How you can leave a party is clearly stated. So I'm not surprised that the law, that the judges spoke in the same way that I'm speaking today. So the difference maker was the fact that Wike controlled the assembly. And as long as he remained on bad terms with the assembly, he knew that he was not safe. So he had to make peace with not just Wike, but with the assemblymen whose salaries he had held on to, whose complex he had illegally destroyed in a manner that pushed the Supreme Court to come really hard on the governor. In fact, some of the comments of the Supreme Court showed that the Supreme Court was indirectly saying that the governor, Fubara, had committed impeachable offenses. So I'm confident that the peace has been found, and both of them, both Wike and the governor, will now be as chummy as they used to be. Of course, people talk about conditions here and there. One thing that I know is those conditions remain in the realm of speculation. None of us was there when these meetings were held, and we do not know about any condition. But I know for a fact that the governor has been told in clear terms that the salaries of those lawmakers that he withheld illegally, he has to pay back. Don't forget, he also stopped the salaries of local government chairmen before the expiration of their term. It was an illegal act. A lot of illegal things took place during this impasse. Now, those guys also need to be paid for the time that the governor illegally refused to pay them their salaries. He sat in the government house and he said they should bring files regarding payment of salary for local government workers. So he wanted to decide who gets paid from inside his government house in the local government. So where is even the independence of the third tier of government? If a governor can sit in his office and say they should bring papers in respect of people's salaries to him for him to decide whether to pay or not to pay. So lessons, in my view, have been picked up, and I believe that yes, I still say that the president, I didn't believe that the emergency rule was the right thing to impose, but there are those who defend the president on matters like this. They've been saying that it was because the president did that because the Supreme Court said there was no government in Rivers State, and he didn't want things to degenerate further. Well, I don't want to go into that. I've made my position clear, but I know that Governor Fubara has realized now that people will push you, and when you fall from a cliff, they abandon you. They abandon you, and they will not behave like they were the ones who pushed you to take the wrong step in the first place. So he has learned his lessons, and hopefully we'll have peace in that state.
All right. But looking at others like former Rivers State Commissioner Lelono Nwibubasa and co, they have criticized suspended Governor Fubara for attending the peace talks alone without key supporters like his deputy or factional speaker, Victor Okojumbo. Nwibubasa called it a surrender and not a reconciliation, arguing that true reconciliation requires balanced representation. Do you agree that this lack of inclusive representation undermines the legitimacy of the peace deal?
The meeting was not supposed to be between, it was not supposed to be attended by supporters of both men. The people involved in this dispute, Wike, the assembly members, and the governor. So what difference would a few individuals have made? It's not like the last one. It's not like the last one when the governor called, the president called the meeting. In this case, Governor Fubara was already down. He is not in position to dictate the terms of a peace deal. He was not operating from a position of strength. He was already in a weakened position. And he wanted to get back to his job. So, to get back to your job, you must stretch out the hand of fellowship. You must reach out to the people that you have offended. And he reached out to Nyesom Wike. The president allowed them to have numerous meetings before the president now called all of them, believing that they had reached a point when the dispute could be said to be over. The president then called them and decided to officially broker that peace. The presence of the president validates everything that they said there. So all of the people saying that he didn't go with his supporters, this is not a constitutional conference. This is just a meeting between aggrieved individuals. And those people that they are talking about, they don't matter in this whole thing. As far as we are concerned, it is the governor that is the critical person in this whole matter. And the governor showed up, met with the lawmakers that he had been fighting, and we saw them shaking hands, and we hope that the matter has ended. All of the people pushing and pushing that he should do this, he should do that, don't listen to them. Where are they today? Were they able to stop, suspension via the emergency rule Ruth. Of course, they were unable to do anything. So, and the governor knew that, look, the best thing is let me reach out to these people and have peace. In his heart, he knows that there are mistakes that he made. If he had been able to take control of the House of Assembly, if he had obeyed some of the court judgments, he would not have found himself in this mess. Trying to use the Rivers judiciary to undermine the judiciary as a whole was a very, very unwholesome thing to do. And I'm sure that he realizes his mistakes now. What I've always said is that the president has to also find a way to rein in the minister of the FCT, because he has this penchant, as you people pronounce it, you are the anchors. I have no business anchoring. He has this penchant for overdoing things, for being overzealous, on matters that he should be gentlemanly about. So the president has to also speak with him and get him to commit to doing everything possible to maintain the peace, because that is what we want in that state. We don't want any form of conflagration in Rivers State. And the steps taken so far show that peace will eventually be restored completely to Rivers State, and Fubara will be able to go back to work and complete his term, and complete the exercise of the mandate that the people of Rivers State freely gave him. So sometimes you stoop to conquer. I said this a long time ago, that sometimes you stoop to conquer. And the kind of battle that he got into, most governors do not get into it in their first term. And I've given different examples. People like Ojus Okalu, people like Theodore Oji. Theodore Oji was in prison when elections were held. He still found a way to win the election because of Oji Kalu's support and the support of Oji Kalu's mother. But as soon as he got a second term, he turned against them, because he must have been feeling that they were overbearing, they were making too many demands and all that. But as soon as he got a second term, he knew that was the right time to get into a fight with his former boss. Even when Ojus Okalu wanted to return to the ruling PDP, he frustrated it. So the way it is now, I just hope that the peace that we saw on display will be a genuine one, and it will be long lasting.
Right, let me take some comments as we race against time. Raymond Osaz says Fubara was governing the state illegally. Adeshola Adebanjo says, well done, the maestro himself. Kudos to the minister, kudos to Mr. President for using this, for using his political calculation and knowledge to settle this. But all I see is the winner takes it all. Fubara allowed himself to be used. TJ Associate says, BKO, do you think Fubara will come before September? Remember, National Assembly will go on vacation next month. Okay, we'll answer that. Moki Gray says, Mr. Babajide is enjoying Ekiriade. All right. Mitsu Songa says, well, I believe Fubara was crassly ignorant of so many political issues and strategies. I suppose by now, he must have learned his lessons well enough, particularly about those prodding him on then. Akimbami Bonje says, Babajide, why are some elders in Rivers State not happy that Wike and Fubara have settled with the State House of Assembly? Ogechi Evonwa says, this was a Pyrrhic victory, or this is a Pyrrhic victory that came at a great cost. Fubara would have been impeached if not for the emergency declaration. Kingsley Onyele says, thank you, PKO. You are knowledgeable on national issues. Timothy Adegbite says, the Nigeria political juggernaut, President Bola Tinubu, has brokered peace between Wike and Sin. Professional whalers, implacable, and the incorrigible town criers should get life elsewhere. Okay, so someone is now saying, Oluwo Goroye says, please, where is Ugochinyere? I think Biki already alluded to the fact that those that were cheering him on and then pushed him off the cliff, we can't even hear from them any longer. But Biki, as we race against time, if you look at the crises in Rivers State, it had divided political landscape. I mean, divided the political landscape. Yeah, I'm actually correct. With Wike factions controlling the State House of Assembly and Fubara's supporters feeling sidelined. So others are arguing that you cannot talk about peace without fairness and equity, highlighting the need for balanced representation. What do you think are the key challenges Mr. Fubara would face in balancing the interest of his supporters with the demands of Wike's faction to maintain peace?
Honestly, I don't know the fairness that people are talking about here. In politics, it's a game of numbers. Politics is an interest-driven game. There are some laws. There are some laws that the Amewule-led house has passed. By the judgment of the Supreme Court, those laws were properly passed. And the governor was told after the victory, after he lost out at the Supreme Court, he was ordered by the House to represent some critical appointees. He refused. He was told to come and present his budget. He refused. Instead, like a thoroughly ignorant politician who is not abreast of procedures, he took journalists to the assembly quarters where they had been meeting after he demolished their building. He took them there saying that he wanted to present budget. You and I know that you don't simply barge into assembly premises to present your budget. You must write formally to the assembly. Your letter will be read on the floor. Motions will be moved to agree to receive you in their chambers. Somebody will second the motion and a date will be set. That is how it is done. I've seen governors present budgets. I've been physically present at some of the sessions. You don't just descend on them like a paratrooper and think that you can present a budget. Well, at that time, many Nigerians who are always emotional about virtually everything. They thought he did the right thing. But it wasn't the right thing, and he knew what he was doing. He didn't want to present the budget. He didn't want to represent the names of those people, even after the Supreme Court had validated those people. So as much as I do not like what the emergency declaration in our form of democracy, I think that some of the actions of Governor Fubara were downright irresponsible. And after the Supreme Court said that there was no government in place in that place, as far as the Supreme Court is concerned, the executive, no matter how powerful, does not constitute a government. And if other arms of government are not allowed to function, then that means that the fairness that people are talking about, the majority will always have their way. They will put issues to vote. Those three individuals, there's nothing they can do about it. They have to align with their colleagues because they will always fail. They will never be able to get anything over the line in that assembly because they are a minute minority. Just three individuals passing budgets. How do you pass trillion naira budget with just three individuals who didn't even bother to look at it? There are so many wholesome things that happened. And I just hope that in our history, this sort of nonsense will not happen again because it was avoidable. So it's not a question of, there's no fairness. No. In this case, it's a game of numbers.
That's right.
The governor knows what to do to get the House to support him. if they see him as somebody who is not adversarial, who is not against their interests, who is not disrespectful to them, of course, he will be able to get them on his side. And I've seen governors who found a way to get a majority of assembly members to be on their side. How a governor will be sitting on the kind of resources that Fubara was sitting on, and a politician based in Abuja was controlling the house for him. It shows political naivety and a clear lack of political capacity. Some other skillful politicians will have taught Wike a lesson during this period. They will have reached out, they will have found a way to get some of those people on their side, or even force a stalemate. But they couldn't even get a single individual. Come on.
Yeah.
I mentioned Chimaroke Nnamani. He was a governor, he fought his godfather. Jim Wobodo was his godfather in Enugu State back then in 1999. Within a short time, he got the assembly members on his side. At a point, they were even tight in terms of number of assembly members supporting either men. But he eventually got the majority. And that was the end of the standoff. Because even Jim Wobodo, the godfather, decided to back off because the governor took complete control after securing the majority of assembly members. This is what this man failed to do. And because he failed to do it, it was fatal to his desire to take hold of the state completely.
Right.
So
That's right.
I do not see any fairness. They have to go and work with their colleagues. They have to work with their colleagues. And I also hope that those colleagues will trust them to the point of integrating them. Otherwise, they could even be suspended by their colleagues, and that would be the beginning of the end for them.
That's right.
They could be suspended. I remember that they were even suspended at one point, some of them. So if they are suspended, for example, there's nothing they can do. They are their way out of the assembly. So many things will happen. I can't wait for Fubara to get back to work. I do not want the Supreme Court to decide on that matter, because the PDP governors have gone to the Supreme Court. I do not want the Supreme Court to decide on this matter. I want the president to allow Fubara to go back to work, to complete the 4-year mandate that people of Rivers State freely gave him.
Yeah, if you can quickly do this, in a minute, because we have just about 2-3 minutes or thereabouts to the end of the show. This isn't just about Rivers State. We've seen similar tensions, Ganduje, Poponso in Kano, Obaseki, Oshewole in Edo. Why does Nigeria seem structurally vulnerable to these, mentor successor implosions? And what message does this send to future governors, especially those elected under the shadow of dominant political mentors? Could this weaken internal democracy in the long run? Very quickly.
The truth is, a lot of mentors, a lot of godfathers are overbearing, and people want to be their own man. People will walk up to you to say, look, you are the governor of the state. Stop taking this nonsense. Why is this person saying you can't do this, you can't do this for you? No, it's wrong. You are the governor. But godfathers, when they bring people into power, they want to still retain their political hold on the state. They don't want that person that they brought to power to be the last person that they'll bring in. So the conflict usually begins when that godfather wants to hold on, to his grip on on political power in the states. They want governors to simply face governance and not delve into political matters. But most governors also feel like replacing their godfathers. And for that reason, they start engaging those godfathers. They start snubbing them, not granting their desires. And at the end of the day, we've seen a mentee who became even bigger politically than his godfather. Today in Zamfara State, former Governor Yari, his godfather was Ahmed Sani Yerima. Today, Yari is bigger than Yerima. because he decided to build himself in spite of his godfather. This is what most people like to do. They don't care. But the truth is, you need a godfather. You need somebody to hold your hand before you can gain political power. All of the people say we don't want godfather. We don't. Many people can't contest on their own and win. And because they can't contest on their own and win, because they don't have the clout, they don't have the network, they really need some people to help them. And when those people help them, once they become strong, they too will feel like overtaking or replacing such a person. Bukola Saraki did it even to his own father in Kwara State. He successfully retired his father politically, and not long after that, his father died. So this won't be the last that we'll see. These things will keep happening because when there is a convergence of interests or a collision of interests, these things will continue to happen. But that's what it is.
That's right. Well, that's our show for today's edition of Issues with Jide. Special thanks to you, Baba Jide Kolade Otitoju, for those insightful analyses as always.